Hi, I'm Valarie Hurst. Welcome back to this week's show, the Valarie Hurst Talk Show. And this week I have Tiffany, Krest, and Dr. Story on the show with me. And we're going to be talking about dissociative identity disorder, and it's previously known as multiple personality disorder. Tiffany and I go back 10 years. We've known each other, and I used to pray for her during a time that she was discovering what DID is, and Dr. Story later came into her life and is now helping Tiffany with her progress with dissociative identity disorder. And Dr. Story is a licensed professional counselor since 2005, and she has an office in the Woodlands, Texas. Welcome to the show, Tiffany and Dr. Story. Glad to have you here. Tiffany, do you have any memories of your childhood and what it was like for you growing up? Do you like to share that?
Yeah, I have some good memories with my mom and my dad and my dogs and places that we lived, and some like grandmothers and great-grandmothers and stuff like that. I did have a lot of, I'm learning now, I had a lot of blocks of time that I've missed. And as I was growing up, I remember people talking to me or talking to other people about how they, like I was involved in something, something, and they were talking about me being in it, but I had no clue what they were talking about.
Okay.
So growing up, I just thought it was a normal thing, everything I was experiencing. I did hear some voices like inside my head and stuff like that, and I just thought it was a normal thing for everybody.
Right.
So growing up, my abuser was a close family member, and he was a pilot in the military, and then he went in the war, and then he also had a little pilots group brotherhood that kind of had a dark side. Okay. The abuse started pretty early on. It was mainly at first what they call grooming, where they kind of groom you to the sexual abuse part of it, and I
It's okay. It's okay.
In the beginning, it was more like he made me look at inappropriate pictures and inappropriate videos, and there was some touching going on. But as I got a little older, it turned into the full sexual abuse plus child pornography. He was real big into that I was involved in. So that happened from early on throughout my teenage years. When I was able to drive and work, it lessened because I was able to have an excuse to, I got to work. I can't come see you, or them. Right. And he would be okay with it, but he would always show up at my work. So I always felt like I was being stalked.
Right.
And then it finally ended completely when I was 24, and that's when I married my husband, and he's out there supporting me.
Very supportive.
And I moved away.
Okay. Can you describe some of your childhood memories where your parents, family, and friends, where they shared things you did together, activities, but you couldn't remember?
Yeah, just like I said in the first thing. A lot of it was, there was a period of time where we traveled, and there was no abuse going on at that time because we were away from my abuser.
Right.
Okay. And my mom and dad would take me to theme parks, and this is just here's what I hear, because anyway, they would take me to theme parks, and they would talk about how I hated to ride the rides, and the whole time we were there, it was just all about, and I'm like, I don't want to ride the rides. I freaked out, and to be honest, I never really remembered even going to those theme parks.
Okay.
And that was a time where I really didn't need to dissociate, but I did, so it must have overwhelmed me somehow.
Right. So just the rides themselves,
I guess,
it was just too overwhelming for
That's
you.
what really comes out to me, is I always heard about that, throughout my whole life. even, a couple years ago, him talking about that.
Wow. How did you manage to cope on a day-to-day basis growing up?
Well, at the beginning of the abuse, I would feel myself kind of tunnel out, and it's like I could watch my body being abused, but I couldn't hear or feel anything. I couldn't feel, I just could watch it. And then it got to be where I just totally dissociated over anything. I mean, it was just times where I didn't even need to dissociate. Like, my mom and dad could be fighting, and I would lose blocks of time. It could be anything at school, that was stressful. Any kind of stress at all, I just totally would dissociate, and I would lose blocks of time. So I was confused a lot of times, but I still thought at that time that it was normal, you know?
Right.
I didn't know anything else.
So would you completely black out at times?
I would have. Well, it's. She's probably going to explain it to you in a little bit, but
sure.
It was amnesia.
Okay.
While the abuse was going on, I became another person. That's
Okay.
what it was.
Okay. How did your husband react when he learned of you having DID, and how does he handle it with you today?
Well, when I was 40, I had a major trigger. A trigger is something that... Can you explain that?
Well, something that happens in our environment that is significant enough that causes us to have memories come back, flashbacks sometimes. Sometimes it can be something like olfactory senses, so a smell that brings us back, something that someone says, or a way that it's said, or just anything that triggers our mind in that certain way, and then that acts as a trigger, takes us back to where we're re-experiencing that trauma.
Right.
Okay.
So, I didn't know if I could do that. So I had a major trigger. I was at work, and another family member called me and said, my abuser had done this to her. And I totally flipped out. I had all these emotions come inside. I had flashbacks. My body was hurting. I was sick. I was just physically ill, sick, everything. And Mike was in Dallas, and so a coworker, one of my employees actually, took me to my house to wait for Mike. And so when he finally got there, I told him about the abuse from this family member, which he didn't know. We had been married 16 years, and I never told anybody, So of course we went and got the other family member out of the situation.
Right.
And then when we got back, and we just kind of wrapped our minds around it, and I was real fearful because I was, threatened to never tell and stuff like that. Well, I just told, So when we went and got the other family member out, I told the whole family, and it was very stressful for me.
Wow.
So when we got back, I started to self-harm. I would cut and burn and many other things because I just couldn't. I couldn't get the feelings out.
Right.
So my husband eventually said, "Look, you've got to get some help," And so I prayed. I was a Christian at this time, still am, but I prayed really hard for God to bring me somebody that would help me, because I had been to several therapists and I didn't even get myself. So couldn't really get help from anybody at this point,
Nobody knew or understood.
They didn't understand me, and I didn't even understand what I was trying to tell them at the time,
Okay.
But I went for anxiety and depression and just little stuff like that.
Right.
So I prayed, and what happens when you pray, God starts to answer you. And I actually met a lady at a swim meet with my son, and we started to have conversations, be friends, and then I told her a little bit, and she got me in touch with somebody else. I know I'm going off a little bit, but I have a
it's
reason.
okay.
She got me in touch with somebody else, and ministry ladies, and people were praying for me and encouraging me, and it was just awesome. And then after I had been with them probably several months, then they told me one day that they had something happened in one of the ministry sessions, and it was that I became a totally different person. My mannerisms and everything, you know, the way I talked, my voice, everything.
Right.
And so they said that I had dissociative identity disorder. And I was shocked, but then I was relieved.
Right.
Because I had, finally,
You had an answer.
this is why I was doing, you know, all that I was doing. So
all the dots started connecting.
they all-
Everything started making
exactly.
sense.
Yeah, and so I was relieved. Well, I had not told my husband this because I was afraid if I told him this that he would divorce me. And we had been married 16 years, you know, great marriage and everything.
And you said he had not known up until that point.
Yes, not
Okay.
even about the abuse or
Okay.
anything. This is when I first came out with it,
Okay.
and that's 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, the ladies, they just continued to pressure me a little bit. You've got to tell your husband because they were worried about me.
Sure.
You know, I was self-harming and I was doing things I shouldn't be doing, and they couldn't be with me all the time, you know. So finally, I prayed, and God opened the door for me to tell my husband. So when I finally told him, he was shocked. He didn't talk for a few days. He was, but once he wrapped his mind around it, it made sense to him too. Because over the last 16 years, I mean, we would be like working at the farm or something, and he would tell me to go get something. I totally, you know, stressful situations.
Right.
And I wouldn't remember anything that he told me, you know.
Was it
So-
there a time you went to run an errand or something?
Yeah,
And-
like he would have, like maybe on the way home from work, hey, stop and get milk or whatever. And I would just come straight home, you know, and he said, I told you. And I said, no, you didn't. You know, so we had little conversations like that. But then after he got, wrapped his mind around it and was relieved that I didn't have like dementia or something,
Right.
or Alzheimer's, then he got really angry at the abuser. So I pretty much had to beg him to not do anything.
Okay,
you
so
know.
your abuser was still living.
Alive.
Okay.
Yes, but in a different
Okay.
town.
Okay.
So those were his reactions.
Well, I would say he's a very supportive husband.
Very, and he is my rock. I mean, the other thing is today he's my rock, and he wrapped his mind around it. It took him a little while, but he even started talking to some of my personalities.
Right.
And at night we have pillow talk, and a couple of the personalities will come out and talk to him, and he consoles them, and he takes care of me, and he's my rock, and I couldn't do it without him.
That's
And
wonderful.
sometimes he'll give information to Dr. Story that she might need to know. So
Right. That's wonderful. Well, Tiffany, what would you like to say to other women who have been in similar situations?
I would like to say that the first thing that you need is you need God in your life. I mean, if I didn't have God in my life, He would not have totally like just planned it all out, my healing journey. I have about 12 people in my life that I can go to if another person is not available. I have a couple people in Kerrville, and that I can just get away and go be with them and get away from my whole environment. I have another lady that I met that she has DID also, but she's healed from it, so she walked with me for a long, long time. My husband, I have a massage therapist now that, because when I get the memories and the healing with Dr. Story, my body just hurts.
Does
you
it?
know, so I have to have a lot of massages and just appropriate touching and,
Wow, okay.
and stuff like that. And then I have Dr. Story, who's been so awesome and supportive. And I just want to let everybody know that there is hope.
Yes.
There is a lot of hope for if anybody's experienced anything that I have said here, there's great hope for somebody with DID. And I know there's going to be some stuff at the end that you can contact Dr. Story, but I'd be willing to talk to somebody. And the main element is love. The main element is love, because all my friends, if they hadn't given me the appropriate love, the encouragement, the undivided attention, time, and just walked with me, you know, I would not be as strong as I am today.
So a good support group.
Yes, good support group.
Good. Thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you.
And Dr. Story is a licensed professional counselor since 2005, and her specialty is working with women who've experienced trauma and abuse. Dr. Story, can you explain what DID is exactly and why it happens?
Actually, you did an excellent introduction giving a good overview of it.
Okay.
It happens, it is actually a coping mechanism. So when an individual is in a very, very traumatic, stressful situation, it's extremely painful. And what do? We don't want to go through that pain, so we disassociate. And so that individual splits off, is what we call that. And then the split off personality is an alter. And the person who is experiencing it will consider it as lost time. I know that I've heard that many times, and for those therapists who have not been trained to look for or to be aware of DID, that would just be a curiosity. But knowing that DID is very real, it is, as I said, it's a coping mechanism to help someone really get through a very traumatic situation.
Do you find that it's not only been in extreme sexual abuse situations, but are there other situations that could cause
Any
DID?
kind of abuse.
Any
It doesn't
kind of
have to be
abuse.
sexual abuse. Any kind of abuse.
Okay. What are typically some of the symptoms of DID?
So the main two symptoms would be, just as Tiffany has explained, the amnesia, losing time. You may go to the grocery store knowing that you need apples and fruits and milk, and you come back with bags of candy and donuts and didn't get the milk because some of the alters are children, especially when the abuse happened as a child. So, for instance, Tiffany's alters, some are the organizers, some are very young children, teenagers. There are quite a number of different personalities, and each one came out at a different time of the abuse and serves a specific purpose.
Okay. So these pictures you brought in, I'll just show these to the camera. Can you explain, Dr. Story?
Yes.
Or Tiffany?
What's that?
Oops, sorry.
Hold it up a little higher.
A little higher.
So the picture on the left, she drew quite a while ago, before
About 2009, I think.
Okay. And what do these represent?
So the one on the left, those are all the alters that she knew of, that she was aware of.
Okay.
And next to them, many of them have the names.
Okay.
And the picture on your right, that's what it feels like inside of her mind. And she calls it the theater. And whoever, when she and I are in therapy, whoever is speaking comes out of the theater, and the people within the theater all communicate very well together with one another. However, they don't communicate well with Tiffany. There are a lot of blocks. And the reason there are blocks is because they were created by having those blocks.
To protect me.
Yes.
And that's been your way of being able to manage
And survive.
life and
survive.
Absolutely.
okay.
We're finding out that it was a God-given coping mechanism for me to just survive the abuse.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of other details we can't go into, but
Sure. I
it's
understand.
just I still am amazed that I'm alive, you know.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And now I'm telling my story, so
Proud of you.
thank you.
I'm incredibly proud of her. I mean, the level of courage and determination, first to even get through that level of abuse, is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then secondly, to be as well functioning, high functioning as Tiffany is absolutely amazing.
She is amazing.
She really is.
She's an excellent writer too.
One of her alters is a poet.
Mm-hmm.
Another, her name is G minor, is plays piano beautifully.
I just learned of this the other day.
And I really cannot play the piano at all. I mean, I have a little bit, but not
Mhm.
like when the other one will come out.
Mm-hmm.
It's like by ear, fluent, just I don't know where it comes from, but it's cool.
And
Can't
then
wait
another
till you
one
play.
is a talented artist. With the depth perception is very well done. The shading is really remarkably talented. So what you have here is not only a woman who is strong and courageous and has survived, but has all these talents. And as she becomes more and more integrated, she's going to have access to all those talents, which is so exciting for me.
That is exciting. Dr. Story, for people who might be questioning, is DID really real? What would you say to them?
I would say absolutely. Anyone that has gone through trauma, I would say actually any therapist should be aware that DID is a possibility, and that awareness needs to be there so that more people can get help. And after working with Tiffany, sure, until one meets someone face to face, it's hard to think, oh, well, is that really genuine? But it's 100% genuine. There's no way that she can fake this. That's the clearest way that I can put it, that it's very real, and it's a coping mechanism for a person who is a survivor. And that's a strength that any survivor can build on and get stronger and see their way through and eventually find healing.
Yeah. And like you were explaining a while ago, there's no way of denying that the personalities that come through,
Yes.
there's no way of denying that. Like you were saying, her body language changes, her facial expressions,
Everything
the way she
about her
talks.
changes. And it's a coping mechanism for someone who's gone through severe trauma. If one were able to meet with a person with GID, it's so clear to see that it's no longer, when we're in session, it's no longer Tiffany I'm talking to. It's Star, the 5-year-old who is a sweet, bubbly little girl, or Wolf, who's a 7-year-old boy who loves pocket knives and loves to explore and climb trees. Each of those identities is so unique, so different, that there's no denying it. They've actually done research to show that brain waves are different with different personalities. One personality can have diabetes, the other one does not. It's truly a completely different identity, not the same person.
Okay. So visibly you can see the person or the personality coming through, and their body language changes, their facial expressions, their
Yes.
whole demeanor changes.
Everything about them changes. Absolutely.
So, Dr. Story, what kind of progress has Tiffany made since coming to see you?
Absolutely remarkable. To think that an individual who has had such severe trauma that one would typically imagine that she would have to live her life in a hospital. It's not the case. She is a business owner. She has 2 children that she raised. They're teenagers. She is a productive member of society. And when we first met, I would say she probably had around 100 different personalities. At this point, I would estimate we're probably around 30. But it's not really about the numbers. It's about her alters being able to tell their story. And once they've been heard thoroughly and know that they are healed, then they just kind of go away.
Okay.
So it's not like there's this big
Integrate.
jumping in. They integrate. And that's exactly right.
And then when that happens, I get their memories, I get their feelings, and it always takes me a little while to get through that, because
Okay.
it's full blown like there.
Wow.
So, but it's kind of healed memories because they've already had their own healing in with Dr. Story.
Right. Okay.
But it's still hard to hear or,
Sure.
or see or whatever.
Sure.
So I specialize in hypnosis,
Mm-hmm.
and through the hypnosis, we are able to process her traumas in a healthy way so that it's not too much.
Right.
Okay.
So that it's very, very gradual.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I keep telling her, the slower we go, the quicker our progress will be.
Right.
And that's
right.
all based on research.
Now, Tiffany, I know we were talking a little bit ago about you wanted to share why you never
Told.
why you never told. Uh-huh.
Okay. Well, in the grooming process, when they were having me look at the inappropriate pictures, and then sexual abuse started, and he also, there's several different grooming where showered me with gifts. He was like, made him look like the best guy ever, giving me gifts, presents, taking me out, you know, stuff. But then he had a real angry side. And it would be something so simple, like one day we were hanging out, and he was fixing something, and he said, will you please go get me a flathead screwdriver? Well, I brought back a Phillips screwdriver, and he totally flipped out and threw it and told me I was worthless, stupid, and drilled it into my head. I mean, to this day, if ever anybody asks for a screwdriver, that's one of those triggers, you know. The other thing is, he taught me how to fly. And he had a little airplane, Navion, and he taught me how to fly. And we were coming in for a landing one day, and as you come in for a landing, you're supposed to look at these 3 buttons, and you're supposed to say 3 in the green out loud. That's what he drummed in me, because that just shows you the landing gears down. And when he did, I did not say it, and so again he got very angry, and he used that to just put the fear in me. But he took over the reins. He went straight, you know, up in the air, and then just dove straight down, saying that we were going to die. And, you know, if I ever told my parents anything, and right then we were just going to die. But right before we got to the ground,
Right.
he put the fear in me.
Okay.
And I ended up just never wanting to make him mad again. You know,
I'm
so.
sure. Well, Dr. Story and Tiffany, I understand the two of you are writing a book. Can you share what the title is or when it's going to be released?
It's a book. It's going to be titled Jesus Help Me Make My Bed. And there's a purpose to that, but to that title, and it's going to be like healing in me. And so it's going to be like an autobiography. I've written a lot of chapters already, and we're just kind of working together on it, but we're taking it slow because I'm still right smack in the middle of some major healing. And I think maybe next year,
That sounds plausible.
probably next year, we'll have something, and
Okay.
she's
that's
going to
exciting.
write on the therapist side of it.
That's exciting. I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your book. I look forward to having you back on the show where you can tell us more about your book and maybe another part of your story.
Thank you.
Thank
Yes.
You're welcome. For more information on how you can help contribute to a building project that will provide housing and healing for young women who have been sexually exploited, you can visit ValarieHurst.com or Facebook.com/Beyond the Veil Spa. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.